All right, so now that you're in Schoolnet, uh, you're probably going to want to make a test or give a test. Um, and so let's go through those. Um, you can come over here to assessments. That's probably where you want to start. Um, and then you can find test. You can find items or rubrics or passages. I don't think you can find tests by other people. I think you can only find ones that you have created. Let's try if I put in Civil War. Yeah, there's nothing, and I'm sure someone out there um, in the history of time has created a Mastery Connect or a Schoolnet test. So, but let's just try a range here. Yeah, so I'll even uncheck these. Yeah, so you can only search for tests that you've made. But once you've made it, it's pretty easy to find them. For example, you can go down to a topic, like for me, it would be life and physical sciences. You can put in a grade level or grade range. And I'm going to select all of these again. And so there are different things I've made, mostly exit tickets. All right, and we'll talk about what all the different stages are as we go through making one. So let's do that now. If we want to create a test, we have two options. We have express and manual, and answer key only, and I'm not sure what you would do with that. I honestly don't know. But let's look at manual. So we're going to put in a test name. I'm just going to call this test. And we're going to put in a subject. Let's do something different. Let's try, let's see here, English language and literature. And let's do 4th grade through 6th grade. Because why not? And you're going to, let's say there's 20 questions. And we're going to pull from English language arts. These are the current standard course of studies or the essential standards. Then you have some CTE, the extended standards, and you have visual arts. Now, not all of these will have questions in the question bank, but in theory, they could be. The school might have to purchase them or something. I don't know. And we can select standards. So here are the standards, and you see that the standards were all the grades that I listed. All right, so by clicking there, I selected all the objectives, so I could certainly do that. I can do multiple standards. Okay. Or if I wanted to, I could just test a very specific topic, like form and use comparative and superlative adjectives. So I could do that. So you can be specific with them, or it can be general. You can have multiple standards or just one. I'm going to test in classroom. Most of these things I leave alone, and I don't change any of them. And so at this point, you're either going to make new items or use the ones in the item bank. Authoring new items is pretty straightforward. It basically gives you a form and you have to type in your questions and your answers. So if you have a lot of those, it might be a little tedious, but once you do it, you've done it. You just save the questions to your thing. So here, you can come over here, you can select your different banks. Everybody should have the Schoolnet bank and the Certica bank. These down here are ones that I created. So those are your banks, and you can change grade levels and stuff like that as you go. You can select if you want just recall questions. Okay. Apparently there are none for this standard that are recall questions. But there are some basic application questions. Right? You can do the same thing with Bloom's and the question language. Now, I do know we have students who do not speak English as their first language, but I try to remember to set it for English because sometimes it'll randomly give me Spanish questions in the middle of a test. And then everybody is confused in class on test day if I don't catch it. And so then you would just go and you would click, I want that one, not that one, I want that one, no, no, and I want that one. All right, so now that you've added some questions, there's a button down there. All right, so we can edit those questions individually. You know, maybe that we like the question, but we don't love the wording, so or maybe instead of blank 2, we want to ask about blank 1. So you can do those sorts of things. You can preview the test. Replace will allow you to go back to the question bank and replace this question with a different one. Duplicate will copy it and allow you to tweak it. So like maybe this one is asking about blank 2, but you want another question to ask about a different blank, or what type of sentence it is or something like that. You can do that. All right, so I'm going to click return to test. We're going to save changes. All right, so here we are. Now this part is going to be the same for pretty much any test that you make, regardless of how you make it. You have the item summary. You could look at item details. You can preview the question, and so forth and so on. You can look at the test settings. All those lovely things. You can edit those, and you can edit accommodations. So we have line reader, magnifier, text to speech, and enable TTS for passages. Okay. And then download resources. So this is pretty important. All right. You can download the test booklet as PDF. And I'm using Firefox, so that's going to go ahead and probably download. All right, or it opens, and so then I would download it. Now, the reason this is important is, let's say it's the day of the test and the internet's down. You can put that PDF on a flash drive and put it on their computers. They could still maybe take the test. Or you can have printed copies of it so that you can give it. Some of your students with IEPs or 504s may need a printed copy of it. So that's pretty important. And since you're downloading that anyway, go ahead and download the answer key. All right. And again, you would just download that and save it. And the way these save, all right, is it's this number here, and it'll say answer key or booklet or test booklet. The code right here, that identifies the test. So if I, for example, let me go back here. All right, so I'm gonna copy that, and I'll show you why in a second. All right, so once you do that, you can generate text to speech if you know you're going to have students that need that read aloud functionality, and you can finalize the test. Now, what that means is you're done making changes to it, all right, and you're not making any more changes. Next, you would schedule the test. This is mainly important if you are giving the test online through Schoolnet. All right, and so you would choose a start date. The end date is usually automatically generated, but you can um, change it if you wish. Like I could change it to the 1st or whatever. Same thing with a score date. So that's going to be the date that the score is actually calculated, and so forth and so on. And the students should be able to see their score after the score date. You have these options. Prevent students from launching the test before the start date or after the end date. Yeah. Prevent students from accessing the test result until after the end date. Yeah. Prevent scanning of answer sheets. Well, I don't think we're going to be doing that. And then, so your assignment, and there's probably not going to be anything here. This is where you would assign it to class. So your classes would be listed here in this area, and it would be like, your 3A Earth Science, your 4B Chemistry, or whatever. And they would be listed here, and you could assign it to a whole class or classes. You could also assign to individual students. So again, this is where you might make the test, and then maybe you have a student that has a reduced number of questions. So you would then copy the test, modify the number of questions, or modify how they're worded or whatever, and then you could assign that to a specific student or students. And then you save. Okay. And then it's scheduled. You can review your settings and then save and publish. All right, and you see it says test is being published to TestNav. You will be notified when finished. All right, and so that's the online passcode. This is the code that students would enter in order to take your online test in Schoolnet. All right, and then I think that's about it for this page. So now let's go back to find a test. Now, let's say you have a paper copy of a test, or you just know what the test code was, that number from the file name. You can enter that and search for it. Let me get rid of all of these. And put that there. All right, and then there's the test I made, test. Okay, so we can find that. And then you could copy it, you could modify it, you do what you need to do. All right, and then these test stages here, private draft, that means you started it, but you haven't finalized it. Public draft, I'm assuming is the same thing, but public, I don't really think we can make anything public on the app. I don't know. Finalized means you have finished making changes to it, but you haven't necessarily scheduled it. Scheduled means you have finalized it and you have scheduled when the test is going to happen. In progress means it is happening as we speak. And completed means that it has been created, finalized, scheduled, and it has been given to the students and the students have taken it. Okay, so that's what all those test stages are. If we wanted to create one, create an express test, you're going to go through a similar process. Test. And let's go with some math this time. And we'll do 4th through 7th, and we'll do mathematics. All right, and we're going to select our standards. This will look a little bit different than it did before. So now, here's our standards, right? And what I'm going to do is I could click on an individual thing like that, or I could come here, and again, I could click very specific things, and then add to test map. Now, what I can do here is I can select our banks, and I want the Certica and the Schoolnet, and Now here, I would at the very least select your language, and you can look for different types of questions. You might do multiple choice. Let's try open response since this is math. And then we're going to apply filters. All right, and you see that the number of questions has gone down. So, and you can play with that, and you should be able to do, let's say I do one of each of these. All right, and then I can build express test. Sorry, still a little sick. All right, and so now I've got those 3 questions added. I can add item, and let's say I want to add some multiple choice. All right, and so that is asking me to create a question. That's not what I thought it would do. I thought I could go back and add from the thing, but I guess not. Oh, from item bank. I see. So this, again, it looks kind of like the other thing, but we can select our banks, mathematics, we can select standards, we can select the question language, so we want that to be English. I think Schoolnet only has English and Spanish. I could be wrong. All right. And so then we can go in and now we can look for some multiple choice questions and we can add those to the test, so forth and so on. And then you finalize the test, schedule the test, and you go from there. You do not have to schedule the test, but you can. All right. And then, well, I think that's about it for making test. Again, I don't know why anybody would make an answer key only. So this, I see. So let's say I want to, let's go to documents, not documents, downloads, and I'm going to upload this test that I previously made somewhere else. And we're going to call this blah, blah, blah. And we can select our standards. I'm just going to click some stuff here. First one was ELA, I think. We can select standards. Okay. Create test blueprint. All right, so this is giving me, so what's going to happen is they would see the PDF, something like this, and they'd be able to scroll through it. And then what's going to happen is you're going to have to add the number of questions, and you would have to say what the correct answer was. Okay, and then you can preview again, and so the PDF is still there. And so what should happen is they would have the PDF on one side, and on the other side they would have a digital bubble sheet. So that way, if you have an old paper test from, you know, your 3rd year of teaching or something, you could upload that. You could scan it as a PDF and then upload it. Let's see here. Is there a preview test? Well, I'm not seeing that PDF. So that's a little weird. But while I'm here, there's a notepad. They can cross answers out. They can also, click an answer. Oh, Lenovo. And they'll tell them which ones are not answered. They can bookmark it. In terms of NC test, that would be the flagging. They have some modifications there. I don't know why it's not showing PDF though. So I've never done this before, so I might have to look into this. But those are the ways to create a test in Schoolnet. All right. Well, I hope this helps.